blocks is just temporary, and this will be our mob catching platform. Inside, at this point, if you update the wrong block, you would like to place our first dispenser facing up, in this case at Y96, and then pillar up alternating two temporary dispensers facing up, in this case at Y96. And then pillar up, alternating two temporary blocks down and pillar up again next to the center, placing observers as we go up. This time we place them from the bottom, removing all the temporary blocks on the way. Now we can start constructing the diamond-shaped paths. For that, we go out from the central dispenser for up to 7 blocks, and then fill up the diamond shape with slabs, all with top slabs so we can have mobs spawning on them later. At this point it's a very good idea to light up the paths as well, so we can have mobs start constructing the diamond shaped paths. For that we then this ensures the light levels on the spawning blocks. Build 7 blocks and at the top we built our roof. Have the pads as well so we don't have any creepy surprises at the end. At the top we built our roof, now with bottom slabs, and we go out these 7 blocks to match with the other pads and then continue out for the next 14 blocks, building
Hi guys, welcome back to another snapshot video. The third experimental snapshot of the 1.18 version was released yesterday. There were a couple changes to the world generation. Again, we'll take a look at those later. But what most people around me talked about were some changes to mob spawning. So let's check that out first. So there were two major changes to the system. First I want to talk about global mob cap, and now we have an individual one as well. We got a little info board here in the back that shows one possible scenario. So with the old system, if we had player 1 flying at the maximum world height high up in the sky, he was further away than 128 blocks from any block. But it also means he had 0 hostile mobs around him and was contributing 0 mobs to the global mob cap. The player 2 that was mining underground would have the complete mob cap filled around him. So he would have 140 mobs around him instead of the 70 that he would usually get if he plays alone. So he was just facing far more mobs because the other player didn't contribute anything to it. In the new version, so we would have player 1 flying at max world height with 0 mobs around him. Player 2 still facing the usual amount of 70 mobs per player. So the change is pretty good. This also means if player mob would be AFKing high up in the sky at his mob farm, that player 2 wouldn't take up the entire mob cap for himself, and the mob farm would actually work like in single player. So in case you're playing on a busy server, let's say Hermitcraft comes to mind, we usually always have somebody on the server playing, then you could run your mob cap like you would run it in single player. What player 2 does would not affect your mob farm. It is actually a pretty good change, I'd say. Nobody's really arguing against this. In case you're wondering if the new system would affect mob switches, the answer is no. So there's still the global mob cap even with the new system. So in this case it would still be 140 mobs. So in case you have 500 Shulkers loaded somewhere, they would by far exceed the mob cap. That means there would be no new hostile mobs spawning around any of the players. So the mob switch system would not be affected by this. Now let's take a look at the second part of the changes that is a bit more controversial. A lot of people take issue with those changes. So first I'll try to briefly explain the old system and how it worked. Right, so here we are on the end dimension, spawning the Endermen here. Wouldn't take long until they respawn back. So the mob spawning is just incredibly fast at the least selected by one. It tried to spawn mobs between the lowest at Y5. There's basically a 20% chance that this block here would actually be selected for mobs to spawn on. If you only had a single block, then there was a 100% chance that each spawn attempt would select this block to spawn. So that's why it was beneficial to remove blocks for your mob farm and try to build it as low as possible. But it only made sense if you removed every single block above your spawning platform. So let's see the difference again. If I get rid of the glass platform high above, bam, immediately we got a lot more mob spawning. I switched to the latest experimental snapshot version with the new mob spawning system. So let's have a direct comparison how the spawning platform in the end dimension would be affected and later explain how the new system works. Okay, let's get rid of the Endermen. Let's see how long it will take until they spawn back. We can see right away, with the old system it only took a fraction of a second until mob cap was filled again. Now this is just significantly slower. Mob cap is still not. Additionally, a glass platform on top would also not affect the spawning rates at all anymore. You can see it would still explain why the spawning at Y0 is so much slower. So it still tries to spread all the spawning attempts in a subchunk between 0 and 15. So between 16 blocks. So compared to the ideal scenario that we had before, where only a single block was possible to spawn mobs on. Basically had a 100% chance with the new system. We only have a 1 in 16% chance that a certain block would be selected. Blocks. So compared to the ideal scenario, spawning attempt succeeds. So this point in the highest subchunk. If it succeeds, subchunk. So in the old system, we had spawn attempts that were made per chunk. So a chunk is basically a 16 by 16 region that goes up to the sky. And now the new system, the spawning attempts are made per subchunk. A subchunk is basically a 16 by 16 by 16 section of the chunk, which is indicated with the blue lines here. So here we basically got the first one, then here's the next 16 by 16 by 16, and so on. So in case of a 256 high world, you got 16 of those. Alright, so new system tries to spawn a mob in the highest subchunk. If it succeeds or not, it goes to the next one and tries to spawn mobs again until the very bottom. Additionally, there's only a 24% chance that a mob spawning attempt succeeds. So this would also explain why the spawning at Y0 is so much slower. So it still tries to spread all the spawning attempts in a subchunk between 0 and 15, so between 16 blocks. So compared to the ideal scenario that we had before, where only a single block was possible to spawn mobs on, basically had a 100% chance with the new system, we only have a 1 in 16% chance that a certain block would be selected, and additionally there's only a 24% chance that the spawn attempt succeeds in the first place. So that's why a spawning platform at Y0 with the new system is roughly 64 times slower. On the other hand, if you have a spawning platform built up very high in the sky, the spawning speed is faster than with the old system. So the spawning speed is roughly the same as we saw with the spawning platform at Y0, but it's 4 times faster than with the old system. So with the old system we had a 1 in 256 chance that exactly this block would be selected, and now it's still roughly 1 in 64 chance for a successful spawning attempt. For comparison's sake, I switched back to the old version, and we can indeed see that mob spawning is just significantly slower. We only got a single pack of Endermen spawning by now. How the new mob spawning system would affect normal gameplay, and I'm afraid the answer is not at all. So if we take a look at a normal world here, the number of hostile mobs you would encounter around you is mostly affected by the mob cap. So as you can remember, the problem might have been that the spawning attempts are spread between -64 and in this case 185. So roughly a 1 in 250 chance that a certain block was selected by the mob spawning algorithm. So we can directly compare this. So I'm in the latest snapshot with the new system. Can clear the mob cap real quick and do it again after a second. As you can see, we got 64 entities again. So it takes roughly 1 second for new mobs to spawn in. Let's compare that with the version from last week. The game didn't really like me opening the same world in the old version, so that's why I went to a similar area, a high mountain, so we can compare directly. I'm gonna kill all the mobs, and 1 second later we got 120 entities again. So it's basically the same. The spawning algorithm is fast enough to supply the player with enough mobs, so it's really not noticeable. But why was this change made in the first place? According to the patch notes, this change is intended to make spawning more consistent in the updated overworld. But as I've just demonstrated, changes aren't noticeable at all. Furthermore, I have the suspicion the new spawning algorithm might not be as optimized as the old one. So with the old system, we only try to spawn packs of mobs per chunk, and the new algorithm tries to spawn packs of mobs for every sub-chunk. I think more calculations need to be made for that. So the performance might even be worse for that, but I'm not really an expert to judge on that. Mojang developer King Bedox offered a bit more of explanation with his Twitter post. So he said those changes attempt to solve a few problems: long-term design upkeep, mobs spawned less at surface than in 1.17, and mob farms that can't be moved like witch farms were nerfed compared to 1.17. Okay, I'm gonna pick out point 2 first. Mobs spawned less at surface than in 1.17. The reason for this is quite simple. We just have bigger caves now, and the chance for mobs to spawn underground is just a lot higher. So if you have a big cave like this one here, it just has a lot more potential spawning spaces. So if you're standing at the surface, the game tries to spawn in mobs until the mob cap is filled, which usually takes like a second. And if the available spawning space is underground, are just higher than the ones above ground, that means more mobs will be underground. That's the reason why there are fewer mobs at the surface. So the changes to the current system wouldn't really deal with the problem, only partially, because the game tries to spawn in mobs the highest subchunk first and then goes down. If the mob cap will be filled, by the first spawning attempts, then it stops the spawning attempts. So after a while, the first couple mobs would start to despawn, and the game tries to fill up the available mob cap again from top to bottom. So there might indeed be a slightly higher chance that mobs would be at the surface, but I don't think it would really compensate the much higher spawn rates in the caves. I think another approach to solve the issue with insufficient mob spawning at surface level would have been a more direct one. Could, for example, use the height map. So if the potential spawning space is the highest block, that only has air blocks above, then mobs have a 100% chance to spawn. If it's a block, if other blocks above, you can easily check with the height map, then we only have a 25% chance for the mobs to spawn. So this way, the chance for mobs to spawn at the surface would just be a lot higher. Next point, mob farms that can't be moved like glitch farms were nerfed compared to 1.17. That was indeed the case. They were about half as fast as in 1.17. The reason is, the game tried to spawn mobs between the lowest block, so the newer version, -64, and the highest block. Hey guys, welcome back to another snapshot video. Let's check out what we got in the 5th experimental approximately. And if the
Hello everyone, and welcome to another Minecraft update video. This is pre-release 1 for the 1.19 Wild update, which does mean we are getting closer to its release. And here on the website there is no official date announced yet, but the regular snapshot cadence of bringing these out on Wednesdays is going to change. The pre-releases will be coming out thick and fast most likely, leading up to a release candidate and then the release of 1.19. And so I'll be covering the important details of these pre-releases. If you're just used to tuning in on a Wednesday to catch the snapshot, then consider subscribing, make sure you catch all of these videos coming your way. And the first big change in this pre-release relates to the mangrove biome and simply the distribution of trees. There are supposed to be less of them now, so I figured the best way to look at this was to do a side-by-side comparison. And after trying out a few different angles, I found it difficult to find one that really shows the difference. If you're wondering, the left is pre-release 1. Activated. Now moving on to other mobs of the Wild update, we have tadpoles, which used to drop XP when they were killed by the player, but like other baby mobs in this game, they are no longer going to be removed. And now for some technical changes. The test rainbow chat feature we saw last snapshot has been removed, and now chat preview works when using /say and /message. And so for an in-game preview, it just means you're going to see that text preview when you're using one of those message commands. Servers will now also be able to enable or disable chat preview for certain types of clients by sending a new network packet. I'm not even going to pretend that I know what that is. And auto-completion is now available for the place template command. So that means when we open up this command, we will then get this massive list of various things that are available to be used with the command. So my friends, I actually want to end this video by showing you what I've been up to on Hermitcraft. Yeah, this is something that I'm really proud of. The entrance to my base, a giant skull that's going to lead into an underground giant ribcage that I...